Good afternoon, and you're very welcome to the program. You're listening to SIRAJ ZAIDI until 4 o'clock, and this is your own Apna radio broadcasting at 93.9 Dublin South FM. This is your own weekly show, weekly radio community show, and indeed, the worldwide people are listening me. And thank you very much indeed for all the listeners who have actually been tuning me over the last few weeks. And just to let you know the good news, the interview with the Iranian ambassador, Mr. Ishaq Al-Habib, that I had a few weeks ago, has now reached to almost 400 people, which is fantastic. You know, obviously people are listening me, and people are beginning to realize that Apna Radio is to reckon with, because सुनने वालों को सिराज ज़ैदी का बहुत बहुत प्यार भरा आदाब, नमस्कार, and good afternoon. My salutation to all the listeners who are out there listening to me this afternoon until 4 o'clock local time, London time, and then again India time around 8:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30 in fact, and it'll go on and on until about 9:30. So wherever you are in the world, in the Middle East, in the Mid East, and in the Far East, or whatever, in the far corners of the world, whether it's Australia, Aussie land, and New Zealand, or whatever. A lot of listeners are actually on YouTube from those part of the world. So I'm grateful to the listeners. As they say, that Rome was not built in a day, and therefore it's nearly over 30 years since I've been broadcasting on the local airwaves, but new technology, YouTube, has given me another lift altogether, because YouTube, since we've launched with the help of obviously our supporters and our contributors and our regular contributors, Sharad Awasthi in London and all that, and the technical team that I have here, the moving on to the world, that is becoming a increasingly interesting place, as always has been. In fact, ever since, we'll talk about that today, because I'm in the mood to talk about it. And there is no news from India this week, because Charmaine has got some medical checkup to attend to, and therefore she didn't get a chance to do it. But all well, so she tells me. And indeed, I will be talking about that the civilization has been saved. In fact, the threatening of wiping out the entire civilization in 4 hours, and that sort of outlandish, rubbish, stupid, and obnoxious statements that was coming from certain quarters of the world. You know what I mean. I don't want to go into details to give him more publicity than what he doesn't deserve. Particularly what we're talking about today is obviously the New World Order. And indeed, what's happening in India, that is also very, very close to our heart, because that's what the program is all about. But in the eventuality of what we do talk about it, we cover the world, and particularly cover the world which affects India. For the last few programs were dedicated, and today's Sharad's clip is also dedicated in the same vein, because we were holding our breath, and a bated breath, should I say, to say that the world will see that when you wake up on Wednesday morning, the oldest civilization in the world will be wiped out. And in 4 hours, the entire country, like Iran, will be decimated, and this kind of statements were coming out from the certain quarters of the world, as you know. Now, all of that is gone, finished, and peace is there. Yes, we must celebrate today peace, and indeed, this is my area. Peace is something that I'm a sucker of. I actually create peaceful cinema, and I really create themes of peace in my cinema, in my film festival that happens in September. Last year, I had created a peace theme, Make Films Not War, peace in Ukraine and Russia. Now, Ukraine and Russia has not behaved, and they're still sort of firing missiles and drones on each other, and Putin is not going to, stop ceasefire. Neither do the Ukrainian guy. Ukrainian Zelensky is in the Middle East, rattling up his support. He's a clever guy. He's actually picking up the money there. Now, that was all about. This war was all about money. The invasion was, unexplained off. Unprovoked attack. It was not invasion, but unprovoked attack on Tehran, on Iran by US and the Israelis were not being described. And so therefore illegal by the definition of it. And one theory goes, there's a lot of theories floating around, but a lot of theories I will be talking about it today, that what has happened and how this ceasefire has come to this point whereby you can see that the entire thing has now been has come to a halt. And indeed, what will happen now is very serious stuff, and people will be beginning to pay attention to it, that why and how Iran has managed to successfully, come out from this obnoxious person. And now he find himself now trapped because there's no legal position. In fact, the Vatican has said the same thing. And why I'm bringing the Vatican, because the Pope Leo has asked all people of goodwill to always search for peace and to reject war, and that is his position. And he says that this is absolutely not acceptable to threaten a civilization to say that. And this is a common sense thing that Pope Leo has renewed that appeal for peace in a brief statement on Tuesday evening to a group of journalists waiting for him outside the Villa Barberini, and a papal residence, in Italy, in Vatican actually, against, of course, it's part of Italy, against the background of the US-Israeli-led war. And he said that the whole Iranian civilization, to wiping out the whole, and to threaten that is a war crime in itself, does not comply with the deadline set by the White House to reach a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And I'll talk about the Hormuz and what the deal was all about. But there's a lot of things happening in the world out there, and Sharad has put together a lot of good information about the current situation we are living in. And I'll talk about that as well. But we have to listen to Sharad about it, because what he has done is an analysis of the background of this conflict. Conflicts are there, always happen, always had been happening. In the world out there, you always see that as First World War, Second World War, and the crises that what we had been facing, and the entire Europe has been facing the oil crisis and everything. Within a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks of closing of the Strait of Hormuz, which is a narrow choke point, as we have covered in several news items in the last few weeks, is belonging to Iranian territory, Iranian waters. It belongs to Iran. So people should understand the delicacy and the importance of that. That sea belongs to Iran, and that narrow choke point is the passageway for getting 25% of the world's oil from A to B. And if you don't allow that to happen, the world will suffer. And as we have experienced in the last few days, the price of oil has shot up completely within few weeks, and panicking situation were happening in the world. And this is what the problem is. So, but why we allow this to happen by appointing somebody or by electing somebody who is such a imbecile, suffering from a mental disease, who would make these outlandish statements, who would say these awful things to the world and the people, and who would declare war, kill people in impunity, hand in gloves working with another bigger, obnoxious individual called Benjamin Netanyahu, who's ruining the entire Middle East by, creating a new war front now in Lebanon. And I'll talk about that as well. Why is nobody is talking about it? He's opened up after engulfing, completely destroying West Bank and Gaza. There's no peace or anything like that there. People are suffering as usual, but he's opening up. He's just now bombarding and wants to make Lebanon, southern Lebanon, which belongs to a Shia Muslim people. And let me talk about it today, what it means by that, because a lot of people don't know this. Southern Lebanon means equal to Shia Muslims, and they are the one, maybe the people who are resistance forces in the region come from there. But that belongs to a majority of the farmers, majority of the people, peaceful, loving business people, university lecturer, professors, and things like that. So they're destroying that, but I'll talk about that in a minute. First, let me hear what Sharad has very, very important clip has put together about why and how and what is the background of this particular crisis called the Iranian and US and Israeli war. So there you go. Sit back, relax, and listen to this, please.
The US-Israel war on Iran is not the story about a war in traditional sense. This is a story about something quieter, slower, but far more pervasive. A story about how the power has evolved and how the control or the attempt to control has shifted from battlefields to bank accounts, and how in trying to choke one nation called Iran, the world had begun to choke itself. We are talking about the history of how the US-led effort to strangulate Iran out of its regime ended up choking the world resources, ended up spoiling the lives of billion people across the world. So let's begin with a simple question. What does it mean for a country to act like a world's policeman? For decades, United States had held unparalleled influence over the global economy, not just through trades or diplomacy, but through control of the systems that make global trade possible. And nowhere is this power more visible than in its long confrontation with countries like Iran, Cuba, Venezuela. So to understand the story of Iran, we must go back to 1979. The Iranian Revolution reshaped Iran's political identity and its relationship with the West. In response, the United States immediately froze over $8 billion of Iranian assets, and that was the beginning. At the time, the sanctions were seen as temporary measure, just a signal, just a warning. But the history rarely stays contained in that small event. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, sanctions expanded. Iran was labeled a state sponsor of terrorism. I will come to the point of terrorism. Who is the real terrorist state in today's times? We'll discuss that later, some other day. So Iran was labeled as state sponsor of terrorism. Investment in its energy sector was therefore restricted. Foreign companies were warned if they engaged with Iran, and they risked losing access to the American market in return. And that is the turning point in the journey of Iran. Because now the United States was no longer just deciding its own trade policy. It was shaping in very clear terms the choices of the entire world. So what the Western powers were doing, they were making the system a weapon. Global trade does not run on trust alone, it runs on system. So the payments, banking network, currency settlements, these are all invisible highways of modern world, and it was affected, it was controlled, it was pushed, coerced against the system of Iran. And the most important system in the financial transactions, called the SWIFT, that came into the sanctions. When Iran banks were cut off from the SWIFT system in 2012, it was just not a technical move, it was an economic isolation at scale. So the oil exports fell dramatically from 2.5 million barrels a day to just half within months. And suddenly, the country is unable to sell its primary resource. So this country called Iran is just not cut off by geography. It's cut off by financial rule. And this is what modern power looks like. It's absolute. So what was the consequence inside the country Iran? The inflation climbed, often crossing 50%. The national currency lost nearly 90% of its value over a decade. Basic goods became expensive. Obviously, the jobs became uncertain. The middle class, which is the backbone of any stable society, that started to shrink, move from middle class to the poverty line. Young people struggled to find employment. Business struggled to survive. And here is the paradox. Sanctions technically allow food and medicine, but without banking channel, how do they pay for that? So the hospitals started to report shortage and patients were waiting. Obviously, over a period of time, the infrastructure started to age. Still, there were no bombs falling on Iran. But then the damage was accumulating because the financial system was strangulated, slowly and quietly. So what is this theory about sanctions? Everybody should understand that. This is to apply pressure. This is to make the people of that country suffer. This is then to inculcate the demand for a change in that country. This is for that government of the country to start responding and responding to the conditions of United States and its ally. And we must understand that this reality is not in a straight line. It's not linear because the country suddenly does not collapse. An intelligent country, it starts to adapt. And that is how Iran started to build a resistance economy. The trade shifted underground. There were shadow fleets. New partnerships emerged with countries like China and Russia. Barter systems took over the formal transaction through banking and SWIFT. And strategically, Iran changed its approach. Instead of direct confrontation, it started to rely on indirect influence. It started to promote groups like Hezbollah and Houthis in Yemen in order to redefine the broader regional strategy. So the pressure that the US and the allies were putting on Iran to eliminate the power, to reshape its power, Iran started to transform itself. For years, this continued, and like Donald Trump says, for 37 years, Iran was under pressure and the world moved on until last year, 2025, when the US started to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities. And then in February this year, the Israel and the US-led military forces bombed Iran unilaterally. And that started the overreach of a country into pushing the world to a choking point. Obviously, and by strategy, the center of the war became the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow stretch of water, and that is strategic because nearly 20% of world's oil flow every day. So when Iran used its strategic means to stop the Strait of Hormuz traffic, the oil prices surged. The shipping cost rose, the insurance premium spiked. In fact, the underwriters were not willing to do the insurance. And suddenly what seemed distant became so personal across the world. Each and every household across the world, affecting billions, 8 billion population, each and every household was affected by fuel prices, by cost of fuel and other supply chains. From Europe to Asia, no one was left without strain. But what the strategists at the White House failed to understand that this is a connected world. One country cannot be isolated. And that is where the story took the turn. The economic warfare that the US had designed, had strategized as a clean alternative to military conflict, it failed. It fired back onto its allies. It started to hurt itself. The economies started to spiral into stagflation. Therefore, of late, the very economic strategist at the White House started to understand that the global financial system that was meant to exert pressure is that there are consequences. So for 4 decades, people were asking difficult questions about this strategy. Iran's political system, will it sustain itself? Yes, the political system still stands. They use their brutality, they use their strictness, they use the patriotism. Yes, today Iran's political system is where it was on 28th of February. On the contrary, the regional tensions have intensified. The trust in global financial neutrality has weakened. Only a couple of days ago, the French government has moved its gold out of United States Treasury. And similarly, other countries are exploring alternatives. Countries have started to trade in local currencies. BRICS organization have started to talk about trading in their local currencies. They have started to build a parallel financial system. And they have all understood that dependency on dollar is going to be dangerous for the sovereignty of a nation. So the system is changing, not because it was designed to, because United States acted as a policeman and now has pushed everyone else to move into an alternative. So this is just not Iran, which was attempted to be strangulated. This is how the power has been exercised in this connected world. And no system can be purely functioning on coercion. That is what White House and its allies need to understand. The coercion didn't work in Greenland. The coercion didn't work with Canada. It is just legitimacy that works. It needs trust. And there has to be a sense of fairness, which unfortunately in today's world has come to a dismal low. So United States and its ally has demonstrated an extraordinary reach. It can shape economies, influence some decisions, and it can enforce compliance across border. But today, 2026 April, it has revealed something very important, that they have limits. And in trying to strangulate one nation, the system itself has been choked. Economic warfare, weaponizing economic and financial transactions is not what the world needs. It cannot contain a nation. It is not predictable. And there are going to be consequences that can reach each and every household because the world is connected. With that piece of advice, tough questions, I hope sense prevails in these 2 weeks of ceasefire. I leave you until next week. Stay safe, stay informed, dutifully ask questions. At the end of the day, somebody has to stand up. Bye for now.
Dublin South FM.
You wouldn't buy a car without knowing its history. So why would you buy a story without knowing who's telling it? Come here and I tell you. It's not always easy to verify what you see, read or hear. But now there's help. Visit www.bemediasmart.ie. Stop, think, check. Be Media Smart. Brought to you by Media Literacy Ireland, supported by RTE.
93.9 Dublin South FM.
Welcome back to the programme. Indeed, this is Dublin South FM 93.9 and your local broadcaster Siraj is here until 4 o'clock and I hope you will be staying with me. Now, as he quite correctly has said that this war, which has got now from yesterday, in fact, a pause of 2 weeks, so it's not over, is just the goodwill gestures, according to Mr. Trump, goodwill gesture to to stop the ceasefire and to have a ceasefire, to stop the bombing and stop the killing and all that. And in the meantime, there's a lot of commotion going on, even in the U.S. Army. And Lieutenant General Mark Hartling, who is also a very interesting man, he reveals that top military commanders and officers are considering disobeying Trump's horrible, immoral and illegal orders to bomb Iran's civilian infrastructure. Now, that is something very, very, very powerful. A full-blown military rebellion may be brewing. That is his interpretation, because there are over 1 million people are waiting for the American soldiers should they dare to do the ground invasion in the future. Yes, they have arrived in UAE. So UAE will be invaded, and anybody who will help them will also be invaded, and there will be a gruesome tragedy, human carnage, if we reach to that place. We may not, because this is what it is. A pause has been given, 2 weeks breathing space has been given, and a peace, peace has been brokerage by our neighbor. Those who are accused of being a terrorist nation and all the rest of it. After all, Pakistan did his job because that's what they've been asked for. So in the last few weeks, constantly at the negotiation, the peace efforts were going on by Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt. The three countries have been very closely working on peace plan, and in fact, the peace plan is there now. Talking about, it was just about talking about the military backup that U.S. military is backing off. He says that I have trained this is the Lieutenant General Mark Hartling. He said, I have trained for 40 years as a soldier and as a commander. Hartling says that, the news now is that, and when you are an officer in the United States Army, you are loyal to a couple of things. A, you are primarily loyal to the Constitution. You are also loyal to your superior if they give you a lawful order. So here is the rub. Trump proceeded without this, approval or legal approval, with his threat to bomb civilian structures like power plants and bridges. It's going to be the bridge day. It's going to be the power plants day. And his whole civilization will be wiped out in 4 hours, followed by through on that pronouncement that a whole civilization will die tonight. Now, this is, nobody in their senses would make. So therefore, people are beginning to say that he needs to go to psychiatrist. He needs to be removed from this hot seat, power, and a total treatment, and because he's suffering from a mental front lobe mental disease. Schizophrenia is many types. In fact, 99 to 1,000 types, as they say, over 100 types of schizophrenia. And this man is obviously clearly suffering from the mental disease. And Hartling goes that he said, when they start giving unlawful orders, you find a way to push back on them and to make sure they adjust adjust their approach, said the Hartling. But you also are loyal to the soldiers that are under your command, so you don't, do something to threaten their security and their safety. So I'm sure there is a lot of military commanders out there right now, a lot of senior officers who are saying for themselves, I can't obey this idiot, this mental patient, this completely imbecile, madman, psychopath, whatever you call him, foul mouth, because he's using it now out of desperation, because there are type of people out there who want something, and if you don't give me that, give them that, they become angry, they become desperate, they become using foul language, because that's the nature of their beast is. That's what they just want something at their terms and condition. Here, first time he got the kick on his teeth by refusing. And this military officer's Hartling says that I can't do things that I know are obviously wrong. It's wrong, noting that it's sort of like it's worth noting that Hartling is no minor figure. He previously served a commanding general of the United States of Army in Europe and served 7th Army. His distinguished career speaks for itself and lands. But he also says that they feel like they have proved support from soldiers who don't just get out there And I disagree with that. That's what he's saying, that no soldiers have approved of that. The morale in the US Army has been at the lowest. On the other hand, the morale is in the Iranian army is not only their proxy with this Houthi and the Hezbollah. There are 1 million people across the border in Iraq called Hazd al-Shabi. Hazd al-Shabi is a voluntary army, developed by the fall of Saddam Hussein under the command of Ayatollah Sistani. Was ready to cross the border to do that. So there is no match for 200,000, 300,000 U.S. Kids, could I say, because I saw the profile of young U.S. soldiers. They were obviously in their 20 kids. There's no absolutely match of that, and they would have been wiped out within a few days if they dare to do the ground invasion. So they've got senses after all, and nobody wanted this conflict because the conflict leads to further conflict, destruction of human beings, life and properties and things like that. So, and yes, they have a superior power. There's no doubt about it, because this is another thing that I will talk about at some other time, how they built that U.S. military complex to control the world by bombs, that if you have a superiority of air and you bomb the hell out of the country, who does not have the superior air force like yourself, so then is an issue. Obviously, the sitting ducks, the civilians who are sitting ducks, die, and the infrastructure gets uprooted, and people get away with the literally daylight murder. So all of that is happening in the southern Lebanon right now, and as we speak, the ceasefire perhaps not applied to them, but Iran definitely, they have agreed to 2 weeks pause, and they would have, in the exchange of the main concern was, now there's a rub of a Strait of Hormuz, that Hormuz will be open, and it's always been open. It says that. Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister, has said that it's open except for our enemies who we are at war with, U.S. and Israel. So Strait of Hormuz is now 2 weeks relaxed, and they're allowed to open, but they have not given a control over it. Still, they control the keys of the Strait of Hormuz. They will check, they will scrutinize who is passing, what's going on and all that, and then they will decide who can go in and who can go out. So the complete total control, and now that is called clever recovery, which they have to recover over 50 odd years of sanctions. So no more sanctions. Sanctions have been lifted. One of the 10 conditions that Iran has agreed upon, and the US have accepted those conditions, is that A, the damages that has happened must be paid for. Hormuz will remain and of course it will be, because it belongs to their waters. That's their waters. They have actually exercised their right, a rightful, a right to control over Hormuz. And the toll fee for $2 million per ship, $1 a barrel, $1 a barrel, and usually a tank has got 2 million barrels in a shipment. So that means 2 million a barrel, 2 million. A toll fee must be paid by the system of IRGC, the Revolutionary Guards, that they control the entire thing. And once you pay that, only then when you get confirmation of payment, and the payment will no longer be accepted and done in dollars. It will be in a Chinese yuan. Yes, this is the petrodollar hegemony is no longer will be in operation. So this is the biggest thing, because Iran has to make money in order to recover its losses. 8 billion, which was frozen, never been paid back to Iran. Suffering from sanction. Economically, the country has been hurt badly, and the nation has been suffering from the from the sanction and all that. So much so that I was surprised to say that. I don't know. I should mention this point. The Iranian embassy account in Dublin, here in Ireland, has been frozen. because of the sanction. Now, you have a legitimate right to have an existence and diplomatic immunity. You are a diplomat. You are having a diplomatic relationship with a country. So you cannot actually, they have to pay the salary to the staff. You have to pay the expenses and all that. And no, that's been frozen. So, I mean, what can I say? These are the limits of the instructions they get from so-called the global order. Now, that global order is something that they're wiping it out. And they're a clever nation. They've come up with this clever nation, come up with this kind of solution that they must charge a toll fee for the oil passing ships in order to recover from their losses. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. 2 weeks is not a long time in this world, and but 2 weeks could lead to 2 months and so forth, and it could be a permanent ceasefire because both countries requires. When I say both countries, Israel has also been hit in retaliation, and they have every right to retaliate. And this is exactly what happened with Israel. That if you and their pride that they are supported and protected by the shield-proof Iron Dome and all those domes, they got flattened out completely. They are wiped out, those and patriotic missiles, and the technology with which Iran has actually shocked the world is the quality of their missiles has been penetrating in Israel and wherever the targets were. In the neighboring area, this is another thing I said in my article, which I wrote for a local magazine, online magazine coming from Belfast. I said that Iran has clearly said that 2 things will happen if we are attacked. That we would retaliate. We will retaliate those who are sitting around us as an American basis. In Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, in Qatar. These are the kind of places where American bases are been sitting. Why? What are you doing there? Get out of there. You have no right to be sitting there, except the fact that you want to control their wealth, you want to suck their oil, and you are coming to their bases to order a gold plane from Qatar. Amir of Qatar has been so because Arab nations are docile. They're not as they're super rich and they have filthy rich money, and so they can actually. The solution is that pay anybody to sort out the problem, and so therefore they've been accommodating so-called their friends in the nation in and around. Now, Iran being a very, very clearly Islamic republic does implement the Quranic laws. And the Quranic law says that you cannot be friends with the Yahud and Nasara. These are the literal translation of the Quranic word. In other words, that if you have become a friends and you have given them, you've surrendered your sovereignty to them by allowing them to open their diplomatic missions and do the trade and investment and all the rest of it in your region, that Iran said that we will hit you because our patriotic missiles cannot travel the cross-Atlantic, but we will hit you here. Second thing, they said that we will choke and close the Strait of Hormuz. And that's exactly what they did. When they closed the Strait of Hormuz, everybody started panicking because, you can't get medicine, you can't get fertilizers, you can't get anything from A to B. And particularly, I feel sorry for the countries who are poor countries, such as Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, where most of the... Now, they said that we will allow the friendly nations and we would not disturb of that. And so most of the country, like Malaysia and all that, they did get through their ships, but accept these things. But anyway, this is the rub, and they have exercised cleverly without using a lot of ammunition, because they have army, no doubt about it, a very strong army, which has been trained and cultivated in the form of proxies in southern Lebanon and in Lebanon, and Houthis, Yemenis, they are also, and of course in Iraq as well. So they are blowing up the nearby embassies, and they want to get rid of all Americans who are sitting there sucking the wealth of, except the fact that those who are adamant to stay there, and so they will be hit very badly if they do not leave quickly. Anyway, this is quite a lengthy discussion that we have been talking about that, and it is a very, very, very complex situation because the Middle East for forever has been the subject of war. And if you think about it, it was Henry Kissinger who wrote a book years and years ago. He's dead now. He was a die-hard Zionist. And he said that unless you knock down these nations, beginning with Libya, Libya, Iraq, and finally, Afghanistan and many other nations in and around, and finally Iran, unless you knock them down and, make them subjugate at your feet, you will never be successful. And that was a message to Israelis. So Israelis have actually taken that very seriously, implementing the Henry Kissinger's project. However, little they knew that Iran is a different country. It's a Persian nation. It's not an Arab country. And it has a different ideology than other nations around him. Anyway, it's another day's work and another day's topic that I will talk about that, the difference between Iran and the rest of the global, so-called Muslim nations who don't understand. A lot of people don't understand the difference. And the other day I was watching a video clip in India, and your man was talking to a very influential Shia Muslim guy in a studio, and he was saying that, how Iran is different than Saudi Arabia. They are the one who are the most important people in the region. They are the custodian of the holy shrine, Makkah and Medina. And so do you think that Iran is more important than them? So, and this gentleman did not have enough knowledge to explain in detail about that. But anyway, that's beside the point. I'll talk about that another time. But time for songs, and I'm here to play more songs today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the first track.
जादू तेरा किस पे चला, होगा किसी दिन ये फैसला, वो घड़ी आएगी आएगी जाना, तूने अभी ये कहाँ जाना है, किसे जीना है और किसको मर जाना है। तेरा आशिक जमाना, औरों का दिल होगा तेरा निशाना, नाज न कर यूं तीरे नजर पे, आए हमें भी तीर चलाना, जो है खिलाड़ी उन्हें खेल हम दिखाएंगे, अपने ही जाल में शिकारी फंस जाएंगे, वो घड़ी आएगी आएगी वक्त आने पे तुझको ये समझाना है, किसे जीना है और किसको मर जाना है, किसे जीना है और किसको मर जाना है।
किसको जीना है और किसको मरना है. That is another appropriate song today because this is something that is very close to my heart. Because it's a all the hit songs of the 90s and 80s. And this is something that nobody can actually announce that, oh, we will be wiping out your civilization and we'll survive. So nobody knows who's going to live and who's going to die. And this is what the song is all about. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy another track. Mere Sajna. No. This is Wada Kar Le Sajna. Te mere bin tu na rahe, tere bin main na rahun. बच्चे मेरे भाइयों, this is another beautiful song of मैं वादा कर ले साजना तेरे बिन मैं न रहूं. मेरा next song is also very important. मैं तेरे इश्क में and it's a beautiful song that I'm going to play now. But before that, I would say that this is going to be the last song and time is just flying by. And I would like to also mention that there's some hanky-panky things are going as usual in the West Bengal election in India. The election commissioner is meddling as usual, as they meddle in Bihar, as they meddle in all that. But they are enforcing and they're, wiping out certain votes with the people who've been living in there for a long, long time. And their votes have been, and I will, I think, cover next week the West Bengal election as well, which is a very crucial election for the current situation in India. A lot of things happening, good things are happening as well, as usual. The people are beginning to realize that the only thing which can work is the positivity rather than negativity. You cannot actually thrive in hate politics. You cannot actually shake hands with somebody who is aggressor like Israel, and which has been the case now with India, unfortunately. And there had been a lot of cases whereby the country has been swamped with all sorts of things. But anyway, we don't know much details about it, but that is something that need to be talked about at some other time. What we will do is we will talk about that, next week. I'll probably get the guest here and we'll discuss a few things in terms of festivity, in terms of food and festivity. That's something which has been at the back of my mind, is that how certain dishes and food is being actually associated and synonymous with the festival in India. Special festivals like Holi, Diwali, Eid, Ramadan, Bakra Eid, which is coming up now, are all linked with certain amount of dishes and food, and where that concept is coming from, that you must cook certain thing, you must make those sort of things if that is the festive, that type of festivity is there. So this is another interesting topic, and if I get some more information on that, I will be talking about that. But for now, another song, and that's it for me. And thank you very much, Sharad, for doing a great job today. And I hope that Sharmin will recover very quickly from her issue at the moment, and will be back home soon, recovered from the hospital, and then we'll be back next week. So that's it. And please keep tuning me in, 93.9 Dublin South FM every Thursday, and I'll keep you abreast with the kind of local news and international news. Yes, international news is very important, and we are affected by, you have seen it, how badly one can be affected. Any country could be, a small country like Ireland is badly affected with the trucks doing a strike because of the lack of government's intervention and the rising cost of diesel and petrols and things like that. But the government did intervene, but it was not enough. In fact, it was just a lip service, so to speak, because the country is swamped with the money at the moment. There's no shortage of money in the government's coffers, so they could have helped the lorry drivers and those who needed badly the diesel. So that was the biggest strike and all that. So this is how it's happening, and hopefully that will be resolved, and things will come back to normal. At least for the 2 weeks, we can breathe, we can talk about it, we can analyze, we can see various theories and various, things that has happened in the last few weeks during the 5 weeks of war with Israel and America against Iran. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this last song. And I must say goodbye to you because time is up, and I'll be back soon next week. Same time, same place. Bye for now.